My parents didn't call at 8 a.m. to check on me. They called to propose a deal. Let my 16-year-old daughter take the fall for my sister's drunk driving accident, so my sister wouldn't lose her million-dollar brand deals. Maya is young. She'll bounce back, and my father said. That's when I realized we weren't family to them. We were collateral damage. But they forgot one thing. I'm not just a mother. I'm their worst nightmare with the evidence to prove it. When a fist hits your front door just after 2 in the morning, the sound doesn't merely wake you, it strikes you like a physical blow. I wasn't returning from a gala or living some high-octane life. I was in bed in Boulder, dreaming of alpine garden blueprints for a client who insisted on delicate hydrangeas despite living on a windswept ridge. My 16-year-old daughter, Maya, was asleep down the hall. I'd heard her door click shut at 10, the familiar rhythm of a quiet Thursday night. It was the kind of evening where the only looming disaster was the furnace acting up or a sudden frost. So, when the pounding started, heavy, rhythmic, and demanding, my first instinct wasn't fear. It was sheer confusion. Then the lights arrived. Red and blue strobes swept across my bedroom ceiling like a silent, frantic alarm. I threw on a robe and hurried to the foyer, my heart hammering a frantic beat against my ribs. Through the peephole, I saw 2 officers, their expressions grim and their postures stiff with professional tension. I opened the door just a few inches, keeping the security chain engaged. "Can I help you, officers? Are you Sarah Miller?" the older man asked. He didn't wait for a nod. "We need to speak with you regarding a hit-and-run involving a 1969 Chevy Camaro registered to this address." My mind went blank. The Camaro. My car. A deep metallic blue restoration project I had spent 5 years and $70,000 bringing back to life. It was supposed to be in the garage, tucked under a weighted silk cover, waiting for the weekend. "It's in the garage," I said, my voice thick with lingering sleep. "I have the only set of keys." The officer shook his head slowly. "The vehicle is currently embedded in the stone fountain at the West End Plaza. Witnesses saw the driver flee the scene on foot." "Fleeing my car? Who?" I asked, the world beginning to blur. "We have several statements," the officer said, his gaze shifting past me into the dark hallway of my home. "Witnesses at the scene identified the driver as your daughter, Maya Miller." The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Maya, who gets a panic attack just trying to order a pizza over the phone. Maya, who finds driving so overwhelming she still hasn't taken her road test. "That's impossible," I whispered. "She's in bed." "We have formal statements," he repeated, his tone hardening. "From your parents, Robert and Barbara Miller, and your sister, Jessica. They were all at the plaza. They saw her run." My parents. My sister. At 2 in the morning, branding my child a criminal. The betrayal felt colder than the mountain air hitting my neck. They weren't just witnesses, they were the architects of a nightmare. The officers finally left around 2:45. I didn't return to bed. I walked down the hall and nudged Maya's door open. She was buried under a heavy duvet, a charcoal pencil still tucked near her hand and a sketchbook resting on her chest. She was lost in the deep, uncomplicated sleep of a teenager who had spent her night drawing, not committing felonies. Maya hates being behind the wheel. She failed her written permit test twice on purpose because the thought of accidentally hurting someone with 2 tons of steel terrified her. The idea that she would hotwire a vintage muscle car for a joyride through the historic district was so ludicrous it would have been a joke, if it hadn't been my own flesh and blood signing the police report. My thoughts drifted to Jessica. I knew exactly where she had been, the peak charity gala at the Sterling estate. It was the kind of party where the champagne flowed like water and bad decisions were scrubbed away by expensive lawyers. Jessica wouldn't miss it. She lived for the attention. For 15 years, I had been the invisible hand cleaning up the wreckage Jessica left in her wake. When she crashed her car in college, I was the one who drove 3 hours in the middle of the night to handle the tow so my father's name wouldn't hit the local news. When she accidentally forgot to pay for a designer bag, I was the one who went back and settled the bill to prevent a scandal. I was the guardian of the family reputation. She was the star, I was the stagehand. I used to wonder why I stayed, why I let them treat me like a utility. But toxic loyalty is a slow poison. You don't realize you're suffocating until you try to take a breath and find the room has run out of oxygen. My parents had raised me to believe that silence was the highest form of love. Sarah, be a dear and handle this. You're the strong one, they would say. I wore that label of a strong like a badge of honor, never realizing it was just their code for a convenient. But tonight, they hadn't just asked me to sweep a floor. They had set fire to my house while my daughter was inside. The Camaro wasn't just a car to me, it was 5 years of therapy and hard work. It was a symbol of what I could build for myself. To Jessica, it was just a prop, a vintage accessory for her feed that she could discard once it was broken. She hadn't just stolen a car, she had tried to trade my daughter's future for her own vanity. I sat in the dark kitchen, listening to the hum of the house. I didn't cry. I didn't pace. I simply waited for the sun. I knew the phone would ring at 8 o'clock sharp. My parents wouldn't call to apologize, they would call to deliver the script. To me, that Camaro was a testament to everything I had built with my own hands. To Jessica, it was just a prop, a vintage blue accessory that would look good on her social media feed for 24 hours before she discarded it. She hadn't just stolen a car, she had stolen my peace of mind. And then she had tried to pay for it with my daughter's future. I sat in the dark kitchen, the low hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the house. I didn't cry. I didn't pace. I simply waited for the sun to come up. I knew the phone would ring at 8 o'clock sharp. My parents wouldn't call to apologize, they would call to deliver the script. At 8, the phone buzzed on the granite counter. It was Barbara. Not a text, but a call. That meant business. I answered on the second ring, but I didn't say a word. I just pressed the phone to my ear and waited. Sarah, she said. Her voice was brisk and efficient, her deal-closing voice. We need to handle this situation before it spirals. Your father is on the line, too. We're here, my father added. His tone was heavy, layered with a kind of authority that expects no resistance. Now, listen. We've been looking at the statutes. Meyer is 16. She's a minor. If she takes the charge, the records are sealed. It's a slap on the wrist. Maybe some community service. It all vanishes when she turns 18. I stared at the coffee maker, watching the steam rise in the morning light. They hadn't asked if Meyer was okay. They hadn't asked if I was okay. They had gone straight to legal strategy. And Jessica? I asked. My voice sounded calm, almost detached. What happens to Jessica? Jessica has contracts, Sarah, my mother snapped, as if I were being intentionally dense. She has a partnership with a luxury wellness line launching next week. A DUI would kill her brand. It would breach her morality clauses. We are talking about millions in potential losses. So, let me get this straight, I said. You want my daughter, who is terrified of the road, To confess to a felony she didn't commit so Jessica can sell vitamins? Don't be dramatic, my father warned. We aren't asking her to go to prison. We are asking for a family adjustment. We protect the asset that is vulnerable. Jessica's career is vulnerable. Meyer is resilient. She's young. She can bounce back. The asset. That was it. Jessica was the asset. Meyer was the liability. They weren't protecting a family member. They were protecting an investment. Jessica is 30 years old, I said. She was driving drunk. She crashed a car I spent 5 years restoring into a masterpiece. And you want Meyer to take the fall? It's damage control, my mother said. We'll pay for the car, obviously. We'll cover any fines Meyer gets, but we need a united front. The police are going to call you back today. You need to corroborate our statement. Say you were asleep. Say you heard the car leave. Say you found the keys missing. Keep it simple. And if I don't? Then you are choosing to destroy your sister's life, my father said. And don't expect us to finance your firm's expansion next season if you can't be a team player. I hung up. I didn't slam the phone. I just pressed end. Then my screen lit up with a notification. Jessica had posted to her story. It was a black screen with small, white text centered in the middle. Heartbroken by the betrayal I woke up to today. It's scary when the people you trust the most turn out to be the ones who hurt you. Taking a break to heal. She wasn't just hiding, she was spinning the narrative. She was preemptively painting herself as the victim of some vague, tragic event. She was playing the martyr for her own crime. I looked at the screen, and for the first time in 40 years, the fog lifted. I wasn't their daughter, I was their fixer. And Meyer, to them, wasn't a grandchild. She was collateral damage, a disposable piece on a chessboard they thought they owned. They thought this was a negotiation. They thought they could buy my silence with next season's funding. They didn't know I had the black box. I put my phone down on the counter. I didn't scream. I didn't throw it. I didn't even cry. The time for crying was over. Crying implies you are hurt, and I wasn't hurt anymore. I was efficient. I walked into my home office and closed the door. The air in there was cool, smelling of drafting paper and expensive ink. This was my domain. This was where I managed million-dollar contracts and negotiated with city councils. My family thought I was just a gardener who got lucky. They forgot that architect is in the job title. A know how to build things, and a know how to dismantle them. I opened my laptop and typed a name into my contacts, Julian Thorne. Julian isn't a family friend. He is a shark in a $3,000 suit. He specializes in reputation management and high-stakes litigation. He is the kind of lawyer you hire when you want to burn the earth so thoroughly that nothing ever grows there again. He answered on the first ring. Sarah, it's been a while. I need you on a retainer, Julian, I said. My voice was flat, unrecognizable even to myself. I have a situation involving a hit and run, false police statements, and potential defamation. The opposing parties are Robert, Barbara, and Jessica Miller. There was a pause on the line, a heavy, pregnant silence, then the sound of a pen scratching on paper. Your parents and sister? Yes. Are we looking to settle or destroy? We are looking for total, unconditional surrender, I said. They framed Meyer. I see, Julian said, his tone shifting from professional curiosity to predatory focus. I'll clear my afternoon. Send me what you have. I have something better than a statement, I said. I have the black box. Sarah, it's been a while. I need you on a retainer, Julian, I said. My voice was flat, unrecognizable even to my own ears. I have a situation involving a hit and run, false police statements, and potential defamation. The opposing parties are Robert, Barbara, and Jessica Miller. There was a pause on the line, a heavy, pregnant silence, followed by the rhythmic scratching of a pen on paper. Your parents and sister? He asked. Yes. Are we looking to settle or destroy? We are looking for total, unconditional surrender, I said. They framed Meyer. I see, Julian said, his tone shifting from professional curiosity to a sharp, predatory focus. I'll clear my afternoon. Send me everything you have. I have something better than a statement, I told him. I have the black box. My parents and Jessica made a fundamental mistake when they looked at me. They saw my belongings as toys. To them, the Camaro was just a cool vintage prop for a summer drive. But to me, it was an investment, a tangible asset valued at $70,000. And you don't leave an asset like that unprotected. 3 years ago, during the final stage of the restoration, I had a high-fidelity telematic system installed under the dashboard. It wasn't just a GPS tracker, it was a full security suite designed for high-value collector vehicles. It included impact detection, location history, and, crucially, a cabin audio recorder that triggered automatically whenever the engine was running or an impact was detected. I logged into the security cloud portal. I entered my password, and the dashboard loaded. There was a notification from 2:17 a.m. Severe impact detected. I clicked on the log. There was a high-definition audio file, 45 minutes long. It covered the entire drive from the Sterling estate to the crash site, and the 15 minutes that followed. I watched the waveform on the screen, the peaks and valleys of digital sound. That file contained the truth. It contained Jessica's voice. It contained my parents' arrival. It contained the conspiracy. They thought they were in a private bubble. They thought the car was just a machine. They didn't know the machine was listening. I plugged in my headphones and hovered the mouse over the play button. I wasn't just a mother protecting her child anymore. I was a prosecutor preparing her case. I pressed play. The audio began with the roar of the engine, a guttural, throaty sound I used to love, but now it sounded like a weapon being loaded. Then came the music, bass-heavy and distorted. And finally, Jessica's voice. She wasn't just driving, she was performing. Guys, look at this interior. She shouted over the wind. She was slurring her words, her voice thick with expensive gin. Vintage everything. We are literally the main characters right now. I watched the timestamp. Julian's voice was flat as he took notes beside me. She was live streaming, he said. She broadcast her own crime. Then came the screech. Tires skidding on pavement, metal slamming into stone. The audio spiked before collapsing into a hiss of steam and silence. For a moment, only Jessica's furious, panicked sobs were audible. My phone. Where's my phone? Then, the sound of approaching footsteps. My parents arrived. I expected panic, perhaps a scream of terror for their daughter's safety. Instead, my father's voice came through, calm and cold. Is the stream off? Jessica whimpered something about the ruined car. My mother snapped at her. Fix your face. We need a narrative. You were never here. When Jessica protested, my father laid out the plan with chilling efficiency. The car was stolen. Meyer, same height, 16 years old, would take the fall. A miner's record would be sealed. Jessica's brand deals would stay safe. That moment shattered whatever illusions I had left. This wasn't favoritism. It was utility. Jessica was the golden child because she reflected their vanity. Meyer was the scapegoat because she cost them nothing to sacrifice. It wasn't personal. It was transactional. And it was unforgivable. Julian removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. This is conspiracy to file a false police report, insurance fraud, obstruction of justice, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor, he said. They aren't just bad parents, Sarah. They're criminals. I know, I said. We're going to help them turn themselves in. At 11 that morning, we walked into the police station. My parents were sitting in the lobby as if they were waiting for a table at brunch. Jessica sat between them, posing as the traumatized victim, her eyes artfully rimmed with red. Inside the conference room, they repeated their lie to the detectives, that they had seen Meyer fleeing the crash site. Julian opened his laptop and connected it to the room's monitor. Before you file those formal statements, we are submitting new evidence, he announced. He played the recording. Jessica's drunken bragging on the stream, the sickening crunch of the impact, and my parents calmly plotting to frame a 16-year-old girl to protect a social media career. The room fell into a deathly silence. Detective Miller rose slowly from his chair, his face a mask of professional disgust. We're done here, he said. Mr. and Mrs. Miller, you have the right to remain silent. As the officers moved in, my father leaned toward me, his voice a desperate whisper. You're destroying your own family for a car, Sarah. You weren't worried about the family, I told him, looking him straight in the eye. You were worried about the brand. And I just liquidated it. The fallout was immediate and total. Jessica was charged with DUI, filing a false report, and leaving the scene of an accident. My parents were hit with charges of obstruction and criminal conspiracy. The audio transcript didn't stay buried in a police file. It hit the local news cycles by evening. It was the kind of scandal that doesn't just fade, it burns everything it touches. Jessica's downfall was absolute. Her agency dropped her via email, her sponsors vanished, and her digital empire crumbled in a single weekend. The deposit on her new beach house was forfeited, along with her reputation. Julian moved forward with a civil suit for the destruction of my property and the intentional emotional distress caused to a minor. To avoid a public trial they were guaranteed to lose, my parents settled. They paid $150,000, a final severance package for the family they had dismantled. 6 months later, I sat in my garden in Boulder. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. My parents had sold their estate and fled the state to escape the lingering whispers of the scandal. Jessica had disappeared to Memphis, reportedly trying to rebuild a life under a new name, far from the spotlight she once craved. I hadn't spoken to any of them since that day at the precinct. Meyer sat nearby, her brush moving across a canvas with a steady, peaceful hand. She was finally free from being the family sacrifice, no longer looking over her shoulder for a trap she didn't set. The quiet around us felt like oxygen, a vast, open space that had never been allowed to exist before. For years, I had been terrified that cutting off my family would leave a hollow ache in my chest. Instead, it created room for peace. I had stopped trying to fix things that were never mine to mend. I had built something new, A life, a boundary, a fortress, and inside it, we were finally safe. I didn't bother rebuilding the Camaro. I sold the twisted metal for scrap and didn't look back. I didn't need a monument to the past, and I didn't need to prove my worth to people who only saw me as a tool. Breaking the cycle isn't a loud, violent event. It sounds like a paintbrush moving over canvas. It sounds like a long, deep breath. It sounds like freedom.